Hi, this is Rick Steiner. I'm part of one of the greatest tag teams in the world of professional wrestling. I'm getting ready to do an interview with Great North Wrestling.
So, growing up, were you a wrestling fan?
Not really. My brother and I wrestled, did the amateur stuff, but the professional thing, I never got really interested in it until after I was ready to graduate from college.
Was amateur wrestling your main sport?
Pretty much. Growing up in Michigan, cold. There was football, there was baseball, but wrestling, I wasn't good at either one of those. My brother was a little better at football, but wrestling was the main sport, and so we did that year round, and we got pretty good at it. So we just stuck with it, and we were successful with it.
Were you in the same weight class as him?
No, I was always heavier than my brother.
Okay.
I was always probably 2 or 3 weight classes above him. He, believe it or not, he was kind of skinny, and he was a lot lighter than I was back then. So, but yeah, he was good. He was real good. We pushed each other.
What made you choose the University of Michigan?
Well, growing up, it was the helmets. Seeing those Michigan helmets. Always, when I was a kid, wanted to go to school there and play football. Just was never good enough at it. And it just so happened, wrestling come along, and we were successful at that. There was a couple other schools that I was looking at before I even considered Michigan. I didn't think it was going to be an option for me, but some things happened. I just did well at some tournaments, and got a call from the coach over there, and the rest is history.
And you have the record for the fastest pin in history. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it was up in Lock Haven or Pennsylvania somewhere, but yeah, I just at the time I don't know what the deal was, if having a bad day or something, but just went after this kid, and obviously he wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one of the only ones. My brother's got a few more, but I guess it's good to take, right?
Yeah. And what was your biggest accomplishment in amateur wrestling, do you think?
Well, I think you work so hard and preparing and getting to where you get to that point. I think being an All-American, that kind of solidifies your accomplishments. It doesn't put an end to them, but it helped. And just reaching some of those goals we wanted to reach. My brother was a 2-time, and so, you work so hard at things, and it's just good to be recognized for working hard at it now. So I think that was probably one of the biggest ones.
And you were going to be a teacher?
Yeah, well, I actually got my degree in science of education, was substitute teaching for, right after college, and just wasn't making any money. So I called up my coach, and at the University of Michigan in the summertime, we'd have these wrestling camps. So these kids would come all over from the United States, and he made pretty good money doing it. So I called him up and asked him if I could come and work the camps in the summertime. So his name was Steve Frazier. So I went back, and he was an Olympic champion, but he called me back and said, yeah, come on back and work. So Bo Schembechler, at the time, he was a coach at University of Michigan, Bo Schembechler. He puts on these motivational speeches for football coaches in the whole state of Michigan. So the whole state of Michigan, is an RSVP, and they were all in the Chrysler Arena, and he was giving this talk. Well, my coach took me there, and the great Wojciechowski was there. He was at the camp for wrestling camp. He was there, but he was good friends with George Animal Steel. So one thing led to another. Introduced me to George Animal Steel, and he said, "Hey, you ever thought about being a wrestler?" I said, "No, I don't want to do that." So we talked a little bit more, and we left, and I taught a couple more weeks, didn't make any money, and so I gave him a call up. He said, yes, call Vern Gagne. So I gave Vern Gagne a call, and he had me send out my resume, and he had me make up a resume and everything, and I sent it out to him, and he called me back about a month later and told me he was putting a camp on, and I went out there to Montreal, to Minnesota. I don't know, probably, a couple weeks later, drove out there and went through the camp. I started with Eddie Sharkey and then ended up with Brad Reagans.
Oh, okay.
So.
Because Eddie didn't get along with Gagne all the time, did he?
Yeah,
Or
something happened that we started for 2 weeks, and Berserker was in it. There was a bunch of guys that were in it. 2 weeks we started at this old gym in Minnesota, and then all of a sudden they called us in after one of the practices and said we were all moving out to Brad Reagans' place, and so started practicing out there, and that was where we finished it.
Was it a situation where you had to pay to attend the camp? Or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was back then. I think it was $3,000. You had to pay to go to camp. You had to pay it up front. There was no payment plans, nothing. So yeah, we and then Vern, if he liked you or if he liked your background or whatever, he'd kind of help you out. So I got kind of a little help from Vern, and so I went through it. And at first it was pretty tough, but you know, having the amateur background, tough. I mean, learn how to fall and all that. You know, just rough on the body. Hitting those ropes, if you don't know what you're doing, hitting those ropes, it hurt your ribs. But you know, after a couple, you know, about a month or so, you know, I started getting the hang of it. I started catching on, but it was a challenge.
Did you get along with Vern pretty well?
Yeah, I got along with Vern. You know, he was an All-American for Minnesota, and so he kind of prided himself on recruiting guys that had a little bit of amateur experience. Brad Reagans was an Olympic champion. He taught the school, so. I think everybody involved had some kind of wrestling experience. So if you had that, they kind of favored you a little bit, and you know, you still had to do everything, but it was easier to handle the practices.
So was that your first territory you worked?
Yeah, well, I went to the camp there, and with Brad, and then I worked I worked probably about 2-3 months. I was going to team with Brad. I did a little, driving around with guys. All the different house shows, and then the first real territory I went to was Montreal.
Okay.
They sent me to Gino Burrito and Dino Bravo's.
Yeah, they had this territory.
Yeah, they had the territory here. So I came here with Tom Zink and Scott Doring.
Okay.
Was the other guy that came with us. 3 of us came out here, and I think we were here for probably about 9 months, 8-9 months, something like that, and then. Things changed, and that they sent us. Then we went back to Minnesota, and then Jack Lanza sent me down to Bill Watts.
Okay.
So that's how I made it down to the Mid-South.
How were the houses in this territory when you were in the Montreal area in those days?
Yeah, I mean, okay. And I was talking to the guy on the way up. Haku was on it.
Okay.
This old Samoan Sika, Alpha and Sika were on it.
Yeah.
Sailor White was on it. Frenchie. Raymond Rougeau.
Okay.
So it was a pretty good card, and then Gino Burrito Jr. was on it, and there was a couple other guys on it. So the houses were pretty good. We didn't wrestle at the Forum. There was another area in downtown that we wrestled at, and I can't remember.
Paul Sauvé Arena.
Yeah, the Paul Sauvé Arena. So starting, we went to Chicoutimi. We went to all these little in the hockey rinks. You know, it's the first time I'd been in something like that. So. I mean, they seemed fine and good to me. I was getting paid.
Yeah. Did you get along with Bravo?
I didn't really. I only seen him a couple times. Didn't really talk to him very much. Never really seen any of the guys. Gino Burrito or Bravo.
It was always rumored that those guys were connected. With the mafia a little bit.
Yeah. When we were with Vince, when something happened to him, we figured he didn't do something right with the mafia, and they got him.
But you never noticed any of that when you were here?
No, I didn't. I stayed in some duplex over in the Italian side of town, but never got involved. Every night we were going to a different town, so I didn't have time to do anything. And then once everything changed, I drove back to Minnesota.
So you went to Bill Watts' territory. How did you like it there?
I liked it. It was warmer from up here. But no, I went down there in the wintertime. I can't remember exactly when I went down there. They were shooting the TV at Shreveport, Louisiana. Dr. Death, Hacksaw, Junkyard Dog, all the guys were there. Went down there and got some experience. Different from up here. I didn't have any experience up here and was trying to learn. Back then, you had to learn that psychology, and it was tough. It took me 2-3 years to catch on. So, you know, I really didn't catch. I was probably with Bill Watts for probably I'd say a year or two, and then he sold out to Dusty Rhodes in the Crockett's territory.
Yeah, they bought it.
UWF. So they bought it out. So I went from one, and then went to the other one, Sting and I, and that's when I started catching on.
Did you get along with Bill Watts?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got along with Bill. He was great to me. He's another one. He liked the amateur guys. You know, he had Dr. Death and all those guys in there. So he kind of prided himself on, you know, being an Oklahoma boy. He prided himself on having some wrestling experience.
Yeah.
You know, he liked to push the envelope a little bit. But yeah, I got along with him great.
There was always the rumor that he was racist, even though he pushed a lot of black athletes. Did you ever notice anything like that?
You know what? I never noticed. Even when I was with him in the Mid-South, Junkyard Dog, he put him on top and pushed the crap out of him. And I mean, as long as I knew Bill, if he could make money with you, he used you. There was never that, you know, that personal vendetta for anyone. If he could make money with you, he was going to make money with you. And I think there was a few. I mean, Shell, Birdman was down there. We had, you know, half the roster was down there. You know.
What was that incident where something happened with your brother roughing up his son at one point? Was that in WCW
What?
later on? Yeah.
Bill had his son, and Eric wrestled Arn Anderson, and he did something and it hurt Arn. And my brother was pissed, so he went in and confronted Bill to his face. And he was pissed off, and they were gonna go at it. And then, you know, some of the office administration people from Ted Turner come in and they stopped it. Well, then that's when the writing was on the wall. It was time we needed to go, and that's how my brother. They said they were going to renew mine, but they didn't renew my brother. Well, I wasn't going to do anything unless I did with my brother, so we went up to Vince.
And with Bill Watts, that's when you first started teaming with Sting, right?
Yeah. Of course, Sting came in with Hellwig, they were
the Blade Runners.
Blade Runners, yeah. And then of course, Jim went to Texas World Class Wrestling and started doing it there. So then they teamed Sting and I up with Eddie Gilbert and Missy Hyatt and all that. And
what did you think of Missy Hyatt?
She's crazy. She's crazy. Yeah. When Sting and I first came in, and they put us together. She was with Jack Tatum, and then she was with Eddie. You know, she was, and Eddie was the booker for Bill. So I mean, you know, he made sure he took care of her. But yeah, she was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like going to Crockett Promotions after Bill Watts?
You know, Bill Watts had a real successful TV and had, you know, traveling around like we did, Sam Houston, all the Texas area and Oklahoma and Louisiana area. It was, you know, there was some good crowds and everything. It was a different atmosphere going into Dusty's. You know, you had the Full Horsemen, you had Flair, Luger, you know, all these guys in a different territory. So it took us a while to catch on it, you know, get comfortable with everybody but after being there for, I don't know, I think we were there about 6 months. Sting got his shot to wrestle Flair, and then I started doing some stuff with the Varsity Club, and you know, things just started to take off and started to work.
Did you like Dusty as a booker?
Yeah, Dusty, he was creative, and that's another thing. I like Dusty. I got along with him. I didn't know anything about booking, so you kind of just take a guy's what he's doing, and hopefully it works. And everything was successful. You know, Kevin Sullivan, you had the Full Horseman. He had all this success around you. You couldn't really knock what he did or didn't do. So I didn't know any different. So I just whatever he came up with sounded good to me. I did it.
How did you like being a heel with the Varsity Club? Because you were usually a face before.
Yeah.
That.
You know what? I find it so much easier to be a heel. You just kind of, stick it to guys, be mean to them. So it was easier for me. I'd rather be a heel than babyface anyway. You gotta shake hands and kiss babies and stuff like that and babyface. But and that's fine too. But it's so much easier to be a heel and just tell everybody to kiss off, and do your thing. So, and it was in the varsity club. Shoot with Kevin Sullivan and Mike. Shoot, it was easy with those guys. Shoot, Kevin Sullivan's he's a real heel.
Yeah.
So it was easy. And my brother, as you can tell, he's a lot better heel than he was. But
Yeah.
all those years we were good guys. Shit, he was a lot better as a heel.
How did he end up getting into the mix in WCW?
We tried, or we did. We were just coming off with Dusty. We did the varsity club, and then something happened there, and we were going to bring Doc in and do some other things. Well, then Crockett sold the company and went to Turner, and we were already doing our TVs there at the Tech Studios there, so it wasn't that much of a different transition. But we all had to move to Atlanta. Well, it was easier just to move to Atlanta, so we moved to Atlanta, and everybody was settling in. Dusty was getting things going as a booker, new company, knew everything, and meeting all the Turner people and TNT and Turner Home Network. And once that started to settle down and everything, Dusty said, well, maybe this is a good time to bring your brother in. So he brought my brother in down at Tech Studios there and did a TV, and things went well, and that was the start of it.
And you guys were known for having very physical matches with the enhancement talent back in those days. Is there any one match that sticks out? Because there were some pretty horrible wrestlers that they put you guys in there with.
And that's the thing. When they put us together, and my brother was real adamant. He was a perfectionist. He always liked everything. Everything looked good. And when we got on TV, Dusty always told us, when that TV's on, you better make sure it's, because that's what everybody's going to see. So, no room for error. And when we get in the ring with those guys, a lot of them, man, they just, they're getting their money, and they really didn't care. So we had to force some of them to do some of the stuff, So it fit right into our style because we were amateurs. So you kind of, guy don't want to be in that position. You make him put him in that position, and there were so many times the guys would mess stuff up with my brother, and he'd pick him up and just haul off and just whack him, and they'd go ahead and just beat the crap out of him. We kind of got labeled, but it was true, but it wasn't. We always tried to pride ourselves in that gray area. Man, it looked like he hit him hard, or he did hit him, or he didn't hit him. So you
didn't break anyone's neck like Vader.
Yeah. It was, Dr. Death, his big thing was, it's not ballet. Yeah. And so he was rough in the ring. Doc was. Some of the guys even Dick Murdoch, with UWF, and Slater, and some of those other guys I started with, man, they were rough as they could be in the ring with you.
I've heard a story that Teddy Long said he was reffing you and Dr. Death once, and it turned into a shoot for about a minute.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was with Rotunda, it was with Doc, some of those guys that would have amateur experience, and they would kid us in the back. Bill Watts would kid around with us in the locker room, and then Flair would kid around with us when we were with Dusty, and Dusty would kid around. And I know they just put us together just to see what would happen,
Yeah.
And it's, Doc and I knew that, but, they're as competitive as he was and competitive as I or my brother were. You get in a ring and you joke around for about 5-10 minutes, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and then you go after it for about for a minute there, and then now, you realize, I don't want to get hurt, and so you get back to what time at hand. But yeah, there was a few times.
I saw one match at Center Stage. It was you guys against Buddy Landell and another guy. It seemed like Buddy was pretty scared of you, legit. Do you remember?
Yeah, Buddy was one of those guys. He was a real loud and boisterous guy in the locker room. But then when he got in the ring, he had no experience. He didn't have any background in anything. So he was, and he liked that Ric Flair kind of, persona that he was trying to perceive. And
Yeah.
My brother just kind of messed with him a little bit. give him a hard time in the ring, give him a little scare.
Do you have any memories of being in there for Mick Foley's debut in WCW? because he talks about that match a lot.
Does he?
Yeah.
I remember when Mick come in and everything. I don't remember the actual match that we had.
He beat up the opponent after you guys beat them or something, and then he beat up his partner.
Did he? Yeah.
But that I guess was his TV debut.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. God dang, man. The older you get, the less you remember. I remember when Nick came. Shoot, we just lived a couple houses down, but he was always one of those hardcore guys. He abused his body, man. He was kind of nuts too. But I don't really remember that. But when we got in the ring, he liked it snug.
And Paul Heyman tells a story that
oh boy,
you probably know what I'm
driving
talking
down the
about.
road.
That you would like try and open up car doors while driving other people's car or something. What exactly would you do?
It's a crazy time, and I'm glad there wasn't cell phones and that stuff was taped. But you drive down the road 200 some days a year, you get bored, and so there'd be a few times. We all have a show somewhere, and we'd all leave the building. Well, hell, you're driving down the road, and hey, that looks like Butch Reed, and so we'd pull up alongside, and I'd try to hold my legs, and then my brother would drive, and I'd reach out and try to open the door and scare the shit out of him. And there was a couple times Heyman was driving with who was he with? I think he was with the Samoans or something, yeah. And so we come by him, and we for some reason we haul ass every time we go. It was just 0 to 90, and we went past those guys and they shot fireworks at us. And so it's me, Sting, Pillman, and my brother. It's like, oh, okay, shit's out. So we just pulled off at the next store. We got about 5 dozen eggs, and if they had any fireworks, we grabbed gravel off the ground, and so we waited them to come by. They went by and we chased after them. We go by them, we threw all the hanging out the window, throwing eggs at them, and throw gravel at them. Yeah, we had a gallon of milk we were dumping in the wind, so it would go all over the windshield, so they couldn't see where they were going. I mean, it was something was always happening on the road.
And I guess you destroyed Heyman's car or something out of that.
Yeah. We blocked the road so they couldn't get past us, and then we started throwing eggs at their car, and so Samoans got out to throw at us. Well, then we threw eggs at them, and they ran off. So then we just started throwing eggs inside the car and ended up destroying the car, and then Heyman couldn't rent anymore. So we had a meeting. Turner had a meeting and said that he didn't know who was responsible for it, but that Paul Heyman could not rent any more rent-a-cars in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it was kind of funny.
And you brought up Brian Pillman's name. Did you get along with him well?
Yeah, I got along with Brian great. He was another one when we first moved to Turner and WCW. Was my brother, Big Boss Man, Brian Pillman, and Foley. Of course, Bagwell was up there. There was a few other guys. We were all in a little 5-mile radius vicinity, and we rode together and did stuff like that. So,
what do you think of Bagwell now? He's had all these issues.
Mark, he means well. He just made some bad choices. And so I try to, it's been a while since I've been out of business, and I'm now in school board stuff and got my own business and stuff. So I just kind of keep to myself. I don't kind of get involved with some of these guys with their issues and their weaknesses and stuff. So,
did you have any contact with Bill Kazmaier in WCW?
Yeah. Bill and I end up being good friends. For some reason, I think it was my brother hurt when he got hurt. They put Bill and I together for about a month or two, travel around. They wanted to give Bill some experience or something, a tag team. But Bill's a great guy and everything, and freaking strong as an ox. But just hard for him to get that concept of wrestling in the ring. But he's a great guy, Yeah.
And DDP tells a story that you once ripped all of his clothes off in a battle royal. Do you have any memories of that?
It was in Virginia, and it was for WCW. I don't know. I think it was a holiday or something, and everybody was in one of those moods. So they had a battle royal. Freebirds were in it. Me and Sting, my brother, DDP was in it. What's the guy that had the long Humperdinck? He was in it. Jimmy Garvin was in it. So everybody's messing around in the locker room. So I wasn't even in the battle royal, but Paige, the Freebirds kept messing, stirring it up and everything. Said, well, you won't even come in the battle royal. You're not even in it. You ain't going to do anything anyway. Well, Paige is the manager, So anyway, I wasn't even in the battle royal. Grizz was off doing something with, he was one of the agents on the deal. And so I seen my chance. So battle royal was going on. I just hit the ring. Started wrestling around with the Freebirds and doing stuff. And then I had Michael Hayes down. He goes, get Paige, don't get me, get Paige. So I got up, went over, got Paige, took him down. It's just, I don't know why or what, but just started ripping his shirt off. And he had these rip away pants, freaking ripped his pants off. I pulled his, I ripped his, unlaced his shoes and ripped his shoes off. And I was trying to take everything else he had off. He was in the corner trying to hide. Everybody else had left the ring. It was just us in the ring. I ended up getting in trouble for it, but it was a freaking blast.
And I heard that someone tried to throw him a shirt or something too, and you took the shirt.
Well, Freebird, Michael Hayes come over and was going to take, Humperdinck went to throw him his shirt, and Michael Hayes goes, oh my God, don't give him your shirt, give him his shirt back. And then nobody would, I said, don't give him his shirt, so then nobody would give him a shirt to cover up in the ring. Yeah, it was funny.
What do you think about all of his success that he's had despite not being the most talented in the ring?
Well, I guess you make your own breaks, and he was friends with Eric. I got along with DDP. He's a good guy. It's just, he made his break. I made mine, and you can't really fault him. Everybody's going to try to do what they can do to be a success, and he had to do what he had to do. He had Kimberly, and and he knew the boss, and I guess he trying to say it in a nice way, but I mean, I think he did the best he could for what he had.
And do you ever do any of his yoga videos or anything like that?
No, hell no. I don't need no stinking yoga.
Did you guys have any problems with Flair in those early WCW days, or did those come later?
I never really had a problem with anybody, really. I know my brother, he had some issues, probably, I think it was in like 94, 95. And they were thinking about putting a belt on my brother back then. Flair was getting ready to do something or something. So my brother had a singles match with Flair in Gainesville. And then Flair went back and said my brother wasn't ready. So that pissed my brother off, being a perfectionist that he is. And I mean, who's to say everybody gets their chance and their time, my brother was qualified. It was a bad situation, him saying something, because he had the ear of the bosses and era and of Dusty and Kevin Sullivan, and it left a bad taste in my brother's mouth. He was pissed.
And when did you guys start going to New Japan?
91 is, I went over with Watts in 88 or 89 with Dr. Death and a couple other guys. And then first time with WCW, I think it was in like 91. Eric at the time had this vision of working with the Japanese team or Japanese company, and being with Turner, he wanted to be a worldwide company. So making a business deal with the Japanese office was one of his goals, and he ended up doing it. It worked out great. It worked out great for us. Just so happened that Japanese style fit us perfect. That amateur type, and Japanese loved it. So it worked out great for us.
What was your favorite match in New Japan over the years that you guys have had?
I think it was with Hase and man, there's been a bunch, but the one in the Tokyo Dome when there was, I think they had the Tokyo Dome sold out. I think it was about 6,000. I think it was Hase and Kinski, and we wrestled for the belts there. It was kind of a big deal for us, and how the business is business and everything else. But for being in a foreign country, and then being in front of that many people, and just the style of Japan, they don't yell and scream. They're not emotional like we are over here. And actually, them standing up and clapping, and it was a pretty. I felt a sense of accomplishment, I guess, after the match, because I was over in a brand new, I was over in a new country. I was over in a new environment, new surroundings, and the people appreciated the match and the work that we did, and so it was pretty cool to be a part of that. It was something nobody ever did. They had never done anything like that before, so it was cool for us.
How do the fans treat you guys over there? You're such legends.
Well, over there, they're honorable people, and they just, back then, you know, it was sumo wrestling was number one, and then, you know, wrestling was big with Inoki, and yeah, they treated us like kings. It was great, you know, paid us great money, and treated us like kings when we went over there. It was just hard getting used to that food, but you know.
Did you get along well personally with Inoki?
Inoki is one of those. He was a business guy, and he was very cordial to us and nice, but never really had any, you know, one-on-one dealings with him. You know, he was the boss. He was the top guy, and he had his other guys underneath that took care of things. So
Vader was over there a lot those days too.
Yeah.
Did you get along well with Vader?
yeah, you know, Vader. We had an understanding. Vader and I. See, Vader broke in with Brad Reagan's at that camp, and I helped Brad break him in. He was a football player from Colorado. He got a little squirrely there a couple times at the wrestling school, and we ended up, Brad and him wrestled, and he ended up breaking down a couple walls where the restrooms were at. I mean, we tore some stuff up. He get a little, you know, he's a big boy. And you start throwing him. Brad was, you know, Olympic champion. You don't mess with him. He freaking threw him through some walls, and he wore him out. So it just so happened he come into the business, and he was big over in Japan, and you know, we were at WCW, and I had already had that encounter with him back at, so we had an understanding before we even went out there. You know.
What was that incident that happened with Vader in Japan that was kind of the end of his?
I think he called out Inoki on a couple things that were going on over there, and over there in Japan, it's, you know, not only is it, you know, it's kind of like, I think there was some underworld under things going on, and I think Vader went a little too far, and I think somebody other than Inoki kind of yanked his chain and stopped his deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of, you know, I think he got comfortable, and then he took, I think he took things in his own hands he shouldn't have never even thought about doing, and he did it.
And you mentioned you left WCW. One of the main reasons was the Bill Watts incident.
Yeah, with my brother.
Were you comfortable before that, and it was all just that?
Yeah, I even going through that whole time. At that time, I had shoulder surgery, so I wasn't really there a lot. But you know, I was comfortable with Bill before, during, and after, and still now talk to Bill. He lives in Florida, so I never had an issue. You know, but I'm never gonna, you know, take a side over my brother.
Right. And was WWE already interested you in that point, or
there was a mutual interest there, you know, and I think we were involved in like the third or fourth WrestleMania with the Head Shrinkers. So
the ninth, actually.
Was it ninth?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when the opportunity, or that Vince heard about you know, there might be an opportunity for us leaving WCW, you know, he called us and we talked and see if there was even a viable opportunity for us to go up there, and he, you know, he expressed there was, and we, you know, the old routine that he did, you know, getting guys to come up there, and so we ended up working out the details, and it was timing. It was time for us to go. You know, with my brother's situation and with Bill and him being the boss, we had to do something. So we went up to Vince for a couple of years.
Were you concerned at all because WCW had guaranteed contracts and WWE didn't at the time?
You know, Vince made it like, you know, that would be the least of our worries. You know, we were, he felt like he could make us some big stars and we could make more money than we'd made in WCW. So that's the hook he gets you to going up, and not always true, but. You know, it was different. It was a change, a lot different from WCW. There wasn't that guaranteed money, but I'm glad we did it. You know, it was an experience. It was something. It was just another accomplishment that we did. It just wasn't a fit for us when we came back.
And how did you like working with DiBiase and Rotundo as Money Inc.?
Yeah, Mike's a great. Like I broke in with Mike, and he helped me a lot. I lived with Mike. He helped me when I first went over with Crockett in those days, and then being in, he's an amateur wrestler from Syracuse, so I got a lot good with Mike, and Ted was a great guy too. That we worked. It was easy to work with those guys. They were. You give those guys respect that they deserved, and everything else falls into place.
And what did you think about working with the Quebecers?
Jacques Rougeau, boy. It was a challenge working with Jacques and Pierre. I think was his name. Yeah, they they had that French connection with Vince, and for me personally, I just didn't feel the match. I don't think they flowed the way they should have. I don't think they were smooth and crisp, and I don't think it was at times pulling teeth with working with those guys. So
there was some incident that Jacques has talked about that he supposedly threw an apple at you guys after you tied up a midget wrestler or something in a cafeteria. Do you have any recollection?
No,
of
I don't.
that?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I mean, we were always pranksters. I hung around Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude, Boss Man, and I don't know if you know Kurt Hennig, but that's all he was a prankster.
Yeah, constantly playing.
Yeah, constantly. And then you hang out with the Nasty Boys, so it was always prankster. Anytime we get there and it was time to whatever, it was pulling pranks on everybody and anybody. So I probably did it. I just don't remember it. Don't remember it.
And Jacques also said a story, but actually we talked to both Jacques and Carl, who was Pierre, and they both said two different versions of the story. But supposedly you slashed Ludwig Borga's tires or something and tried to blame it on the Quebecers to Borga, and it caused some type of confrontation between Jacques and Borga that Borga backed down from.
Did he?
Yeah, they blame. I think Pierre said that you guys slashed their tires, and Jacques said that you guys slashed Borga's tires. So they had their stories a little confused, but there was tire slashing involved, and apparently the heat was trying to be made between them and Borga, and it was a prank on your part.
It was a prank on our part. Yeah. God dang, I wish I could remember. That sounds like a great story. I just don't remember it. There was always something. I mean, it was tires, it was batteries, it was, anything and everything was fair game back in that day,
But basically, you guys were just joking around, and
they
took
it
a
everything
little seriously.
was just a joke. Yeah, man, it was just life's too short to have to, get pissed off.
But you don't remember Jacques ever confront? There's no apple incident where he would have thrown an apple at you guys.
I don't remember.
Okay. What about Shawn Michaels? He was in there back then. Did you have any dealings with him?
You know what? Shawn was actually with Bill Watts when I first started over there with Sting. I always got along with Shawn. I didn't have no issues. And then when my brother and I got in there, he kind of gave us a little. He gave us some pointers and stuff. Shawn and Kevin Nash were good friends. So there was a story there because when we were in WWF, we were in Nova Scotia doing a show, and then Shawn was looking for a bodyguard. So Vince came into the locker room and knew that I was good friends with Kevin. So he asked me, he said, "You think Kevin would be interested in coming in up to?" I said, "I don't know. Why don't we call him?" He goes, "You got his number?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good friends with him." So we actually called Kevin on the phone right there. I said, "Kevin, hey, I'm sitting with Vince. He's interested. Are you able to get out of your contract? Do you have any contract with W?" He goes, "No, I don't." He thought I was kidding with him, joking around. I said, "Well, just hang on a minute." So then I put Vince on the phone. And Vince, they talked their deal out, and then next thing I know, 2 weeks later, Kevin comes up as Diesel. So and then so that kind of, and then Kevin was Shawn's bodyguard. So then, and Kevin is, we're Detroit boys, and he's godfather of my kid, my oldest son. So there was just that little, that little circle there of, Sean tried to help us and do what he could. And he liked Kevin, and so we kind of saw a little inner thing there.
Right. So you helped them out. There was
Yeah.
So do you have any memories of your shots that you did for Smoky Mountain before you left?
I remember I remember doing a match with Bobby Eaton and the Midnight Express, and they had, what was the black guy that was, he was their manager, and or maybe it was the Freebirds. But anyway, we had that Arnold, our dog, and it was a couple matches we did. Well, we'd bring him in the ring. Well, come to find out, Michael Hayes is scared of dogs, and so is this black manager. I can't remember his name, Ricky something. So anyway, shoot, as soon as we got wind of that, so when we come in the ring, Michael Hayes and everybody would get out of the ring. Well, heck, when he got out, we got out with the dog, and then I chased Michael Hayes all over the arena. 2 weeks later, Bobby Eaton, and he had this black manager. I think his name's Ricky something. But anyway, he got in the ring. He didn't know anything was gonna happen. I'd set it up with Bobby Eaton already. So when we come in the ring with the dog, Bobby Eaton just leaves right away. Well, then he's standing there looking at me, and I got the dog, so I let the dog go. He jumps up on the top of the ring post so he can get away. Well, the dog's trying to nip at his feet, so he ends up falling off that top post ring there. And I grab the dog. He falls down and takes off. He's like, "What?" I let the dog go again, and he ran up the stands, up the stairs, all the way back to the thing. And I ended up getting the dog. I got out of the ring and chased after him. Called Arnold, "Get back!" Arnold came back. My brother's laughing, and Bobby Eaton, everybody's gone. So I chased this black manager all the way up to the top of the arena, and he takes off running like this. So then the crowd's there, and everybody's laughing. So then I come back down with the dog, but he never came back down. I think he left, got in the car, and just left. I don't know what happened to him, but Bobby Eaton, and he was laughing the whole time. And then I tied Arnold up to the ring. So then Bobby was always worried I was going to let the dog go on him during the match. So I'd hold Bobby down, and I'd try to cover his mouth and make him pass out. And it was just joking around, shit, and having fun in the ring.
What did you think of Jim Cornette?
I like Jim. He's I got along great with him. Never had an issue. He was the manager for Big Boss Man. Me and Ray were good friends, and so I really got along with pretty much everybody. Jim, I always had fun with Jim. He respected my brother and I, and he never said a bad thing about us, and we always had fun.
So why did you ultimately leave WWE?
There was just some of the things that we were told were going to happen just never materialized. The money was an issue. It was never. They never followed through with what they said they were going to do. My brother just got tired of, we were back then. You would go on the road for, 15, 20 days and not go home, and there was just some different things that were going on there that we just weren't. Back then, that's when Vince was getting sued. He was brought on charges for taking, all these people across state lines. It was just all the drugs and everything going on. So it was just a bad time to be there. And he had that ICAPRO company that was taking the dump. So just a lot of things going on, and I don't think the focus was on wrestling. We weren't being compensated how we thought. We put up with it. We didn't put up with it. We went through it. Tried to make the best of it, and then the opportunity came that we could go back to WCW, so we grabbed it.
And how did that opportunity come about? You were just friends with Eric Bischoff?
Yeah, at the time I really wasn't friends with Eric. I got closer with Eric as time went on, but I called Paul Orndorff, we're real good friends with Paul Orndorff, and asked him if there'd be interest in us coming back. Well, what happened was once that happened, once we started having issues with WWF, I called Japanese office.
Okay.
So we got a deal worked out where we could go over to Japan 10 weeks out of the year. So we presented it to Vince. Hey, I know we're not making the money you said, and blah, blah. We went through the scenario, and I said, well, we got an opportunity to go to Japan. Do you care if we take it? And he said, yeah, I don't mind. Well, I'm not going to be able to, do what I wanted to do and everything. So at that point, we just felt like it was a better opportunity for us. So we started doing the Japan thing, because I knew Japan and WCW were going to probably get back together again. So we started working with Japan. We did that for, I don't know, about 6 more months, and then Vince gave us a release. We ended up finishing our deal with Japan, and then in the meantime, I called Paul Orndorff and just got back in with WCW.
And you feuded with the Road Warriors a bit at that point, didn't you?
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Oh, we love working with Joe and Mike. They were real physical. You know, they were more of a brawler type team. You know, weren't scientific. They'll agree. You know, they weren't never scientific. It was all just muscle moves and brawling and stuff, and that was fine. We enjoyed it, and it worked good. We worked great together. We were willing. Both of the teams were willing to sacrifice to make it a good match, and Japanese people just loved it when we went over there. So that was a good match for us too.
And what about working with the Nasty Boys?
Oh boy, it was something every night. But you know, in those guys, they didn't have a lot of, you know, and they'll tell you they were heavy guys, didn't have a lot of talent, but they had a good gimmick, but they worked hard, you know, and you know, they liked the physicality of the whole thing and everything. And so you know, it was kind of a funny thing, but my brother and I never really mattered who we were working with. We worked better with guys that were more physical, and we had the amateur background to help us in the more technical matches. So, you know, it was just a gift we had. We were lucky. Good Lord gave us the opportunity and blessed us with that. And, you know, we tried to perfect that the best we could.
And what about Harlem Heat? They were pretty over at that time.
Yeah, they were a good team too. Stevie, you know, he was the heavy hitter, and then Booker, you know, he was the moves and the high flyer and stuff. And my brother was like at that time like doing the high flying stuff too, and you know, the more risky moves. So they worked good together. It just, you know, it was I guess it was like you know, it was just I think it was a gift we had. We could adapt to any one of these teams, and what made it real nice is a lot of these guys were real men. You know, even even Butch Reed and Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, they were a great team, and they liked it physical. The Road Warriors liked it physical. You know, even Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they were a good team. They weren't so much, they liked it physical, but they were, you know, just a big team, skyscrapers. You know, it seems like all these guys, big guys, football players, you know, some kind of athletics. So it really worked out for us good that they liked physical matches.
Was it ever difficult working with Scott Hall?
No, never. Scott was always, you know, I know it was later on, you know, things started to happen with him in the ring, but in the beginning there, he was great to work with. You know, he could be stiff at times. Kevin, you know, we were all, you know, we dished it out. We'd take it, you know, we took it too. So.
Yeah, speaking of stiff, there's apparently some match happened with Conan and you where you ended up stiffing him a bit.
Well, you know, it was towards the end of WCW there, and there was some things going on. He was having some issues going on with some of the other Mexican wrestlers where there was some money involved and stuff, and a few of us got wind of it. You know, I talked to Eric about it and everything, so they put me in a match with Conan. Well, Conan, he'd get a little stiff on you too. Well, I don't know if I was just got up on the wrong side of the bed that day, but I went out there and had some stuff. He got a little stiff, and I just turned the amateur switch on and roughed him up a little bit. And you know, I guess he didn't like it too much, but what shit happens, you know.
Was there any repercussions for that by WCW?
No, I mean, you know, truth be told, Kevin Sullivan was the booker back then. He told me to go out there. There was a couple of guys, you know, he said, hey, man, do what you do best out there with these guys. So.
And you had to work with Tank Abbott a bit, who wasn't really a wrestler. What did you think of working with him?
He had a little bit of attitude when he came in, you know, the UFC type attitude, and you know, him and I had a thing in South Carolina we had going on. I don't know if you ever seen that fist fight we had down there in South Carolina. It's somebody put it on internet or on.
So it was in WCW.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the crowd and he was making fun of the guys, and so So Kevin Sullivan got me and said, go down there and get into it with him. So
he paid for a ticket and tried to.
Yeah. So I went down. It's actually on the tape. Somebody sent it on over. I don't know if it was on Twitter or something, but sent me a notification on Twitter, and it actually has the sequence of stuff coming down. I was just in street clothes. Said, go down there and give him a heart. I said, all right, I'll go down there. So we went down. We threw a few punches, and cops escorted him out. And that kind of led up to then Eric started talking to him, and then he brought him back in, and then they brought us in and said, hey, you don't have a problem working with each other. I said, I don't have a problem working. I can work. Whatever we got to do. So they actually put us together for a little bit, a couple of matches, and then they put him with some of the other guys. I wasn't around him long. I think he only came in for like 6 months. He had an attitude, but hell, he didn't bother me, so I just, I didn't pay any attention to him. But, he liked to play the king of the hill attitude. But there were so many guys in that, at WCW. I mean, you got Haku, man. You don't mess with that guy,
Would you say he's like the toughest wrestler of that era?
Back in the day, I could give you a handful. I mean, you got Haku. I've been in L.A. and some of those things. I've been in St. Louis, and that thing he does, it really works. I mean, we were sitting at a bar, me and Kurt Hennig, in St. Louis, and these Marines come in. And they were just joking. They were drinking. By the end of the night, one of them come over and said, what are you guys hanging out with? He thought he was black. And I said, well, he ain't black. And I if I was you, I wouldn't. He goes, well, we're Marines. We'll do whatever the hell we want. And I said, well, not tonight. I said, it's going to be a bad night. You guys do something with him. And who the hell, So it just kept going worse, downhill. And then finally, a couple went over and started messing with Haku. And it was freaking kick, and up in the throat. And 4 or 5 of them were laying, and the rest of them were looking, and it was me and Kurt and Rude took a couple guys out. And it was over before it even got started. But I'd say Haku. You got Hawk. He had that. You got Dr. Death. Even what's his name? Billy Gunn, Bart. He had that. He was a lefty, man. He heavy hand, man. He knocked some guys out cold, but.
And people say Rick Rude too, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, Rick. He was, just a story with him. We were in Montgomery, Alabama, and we were doing a thing for a hunting show. It was Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, me, Boss Man, and Steve Austin. So we went into this country bar, and then we were there with a couple country singers, and so they were giving a show on that night when there was a bunch of cops off duty there. Well, this one wanted to arm wrestle Kurt Hennig. Well, Kurt Hennig can't arm wrestle anybody. So Kurt says, well, I'll do it for $500. So he started making a big deal and drawing attention. And they were drinking. He said, I'll take you out for $500. And so the cop comes over, and we got 4 or 5 cops in Montgomery, Alabama. What the hell are you doing, Kurt? He said, no, don't worry about it, man. I got it, And so Rude is off in the corner. He's just sitting there, and he'd always just sip his beer. Just 2 fingers, he'd just sip his beer. Well, Rude's a world championship arm wrestler, him and Scott Norton. So this guy says, I'll do it $500. You got your cash. Of course, Kurt had his cash money out and made that guy put his cash money on the table. He goes, in front of everybody, he goes, wait a minute, I'll make it $1,000. And the guy goes, love. He goes, if you can beat him, if you can beat Kurt Hennig, or if you can beat that guy over there, then I'll take you on for $2,000. The 5 of us know what the hell's going on. He's setting this guy up because Rick Rude's freaking world champion arm wrestles. So they get this big, everybody clears out. We got this table in the middle of this bar. This concert stops, and Rude gets up there like he just doesn't want to be there. He puts his arm up there. The guy, trying to maul his hand, trying to get a good arm position. And they get ready. The $1,000 is here. This cop, big old burly guy, get ready. Boom. The guy goes like this. His buddy's over there. He's in uniform. They put the hands on it. They're ready to break him going. Rude goes, bam, smashes his hand down. Kurt Hennig takes the $1,000 and starts laughing. So I'm like, what are you doing? So now we got 18, 20 cops in this bar. How the hell are we going to get out of there? So the owner of the bar knows us, and we're with John Anderson, the country singer. He takes us out the back door, called a couple of his buddies. We got in cars and we took off. Never went back. But it was just stuff like, took $1,000 cop money and he never arm wrestled anybody.
Yeah.
Henny never even arm wrestled anybody. Just laughed the whole time. Took $1,000 and Rude had to do all the dirty work. Didn't get any of the money or nothing. And we laughed the whole time.
And did you have much dealings with Goldberg in WCW?
Oh yeah, Bill was a good friend of mine. We got to be, hell, he was a good friend as soon as he came in. He asked a lot of questions and I kind of give him some pointers there when he first came in. How to handle this and that, and we ended up becoming good friends. We did probably 10 different years of Sturgis, riding our bikes out there and having a blast. He lived in Dawsonville, which is up in the woods there in North Georgia. My boys loved him. My boys still call him and talk to him. Got to be good friends with some of the guys on the Georgia football team. But yeah, Bill's a good buddy of mine.
What do you think of his return now?
I wish him the best of luck. My thing is I just hope nothing, hope he stays injury free, and I wish him the best of luck with all. I hope it goes off good. I mean, his opponent's a big old dude, so let's hope everything goes smooth,
Yeah.
And, he's got a family now, and none of us are getting any younger.
Yeah.
So.
You don't want the same thing that happened to Sting.
Yeah, Sting, it's just, you kind of look and you get that point in your life, man. It's like, I know you feel like you got one more in you, but gosh, sometimes it's not worth the injury.
What do you think of this guy, Kevin Owens? It's their champion now, and shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah, I think the more you water it down, just back when we were going, here I go back in the day. Back when I was doing it, you respected the business, and there was no talk about it, and you dressed according, like you were going into war with this stuff. You wear a t-shirt, you get it ripped off you. You wore jewelry, you got it ripped off you. You didn't act right, freaking got the hell beat out of you, for real. I mean, just another story. When I was with Bill Watts. Hellwig was in the ring wrestling the Russian. Well, he kicked the guy in the ribs and it looked like shit. Well, Bill Watts ran from the locker room to the ring, kicked the Russian about 5-6 times, and then he made Hellwig get down the ring, kicked him about 5-6 times, took them both, and this is the middle of a show, takes them back in the locker room and said, if you guys ever, play that, crap again, you're out of here. Well, Russian had a few things to say. Well, hell, he took the Russian to the back and they beat the hell out of him. I never seen the guy again. Hellwig, he got back there and he made him work on doing kicks for about 30 minutes. So, I think it was just more of a respect for the business, and it was different mentality. It was older school, and you had these older guys, crusty old guys in there, so they kind of wanted to keep that tradition going. It's just, things have changed. It's got big money now, and it's just different change in the way business is going.
What do you think of their product today? Now that they have champions that wear shirts in the ring.
I hate, back then when Dick Murdoch and all those guys, and they used to talk about the old days, and I say, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do that. I guess the business has got to evolve. I don't know if it's evolved in a good way. I still believe in, this, the psychology of the business and keeping people on the edge of their seat where they don't know if it's how real it really is and how, what actually I'm doing out there. And I like it more of a contest than what it is now. It just moves and so I'm not a real fan of the new, there's some good guys in the business now that, good guys, Orton and Cena, and those guys are good guys, and it's just, you got to go with the flow of the business. I just don't agree with the direction it's going in.
Yeah.
I still like the kick and punching.
And they ended up splitting you and your brother in WCW. What did you think of that angle?
At the time, I wasn't sure. I talked to Sting about it, and Eric talked to me about it. It was just, I think it was time. We'd wrestled everybody, tag-wise. There wasn't a lot of guys coming around. any more tag teams out there that we could really do anything with. I mean, there was still, you have to get creative to do it, but at the time, Eric had brought in that NWO and was starting that off, and they wanted to put my brother in that. They wanted to put me and Sid and Goldberg and some of those guys together. So they kind of laid out a scenario that, it was time. Let's try something, single. It worked great for my brother. Hell, he dyed his hair and cut his hair and dyed it and, transformed his body. And here he goes, he's Big Papa Pump. What was it, 10 years? I tried to get an interview out of him as the Steiner brothers, and all of a sudden now he's Big Papa Pump, and he does these 20, 30-minute interviews. But it worked good for him. I mean, I ended up getting hurt, my other shoulder going out, but it was a good time for me. I made the best of it. His thing was a little better, but no, I didn't have any hard feelings. It was just time. We did something different.
Were you around the day that DDP attacked him after that one interview?
Yeah, I was there. My brother went out and did the interview. That's just the way my brother is. He did the interview. Was it right or wrong? My brother did the interview. It didn't matter if it was right or wrong. And he come back. Bad thing is DDP had all these security guys. So my brother came back. My brother's going to fight anybody. And they went into fighting, and the security just broke him right up right away. So there wasn't nothing going to happen. And, of course, DDP's friends with Eric. So it was kind of, my brother had to leave it alone.
Right.
So
you weren't upset at all that he attacked your brother?
Well, he didn't attack him. They come back and locked him. They had words. My brother took him down, and the security, was apart. So there was no attacking. There was nothing, and I was there. So it's my brother, so ain't shit gonna go down. But nothing went down, so nothing I was worried about. I sure wasn't worried about DDP doing anything.
And you had a couple matches with Chris Benoit. What are your memories about working with him?
Chris, when I first went over to Japan, he was over there and he was in a dojo with Undertaker, and he was a good, respectful kid. We had some matches, and even later on, when he was in Japan, he was a junior. So when I wrestled him, I treated him as a junior. And but he ended up being a good hand, a good wrestler, and hell, I enjoyed working with him. I know a couple times you got upset. You thought maybe I did a little more than I should have, but if you don't like what I'm doing, stop me or do something or change it. I never took advantage, to the point where I made. But you know what? Sometimes just if I didn't feel it was right, I wasn't going to do it. I stood by what I believed. So.
Were you surprised about what happened with him?
Yeah, all those years, a guy, and you and I talking, shoot, women get you pissed off. I could see, doing something with your wife, you get pissed off, you get mad at her. But man, when you involve a kid, there's something wrong there, evil wrong. And I never really knew. I knew Chris when he was in WCW, but when he went up to WWF, I knew of Chris. I was around Chris for all those years, but I wasn't real good friends with Chris. So, when you hear those things, guys, and they did autopsy on him and said his brain was, he had concussion issues, and they were the worst they've ever seen with football players and wrestlers. His brain deal was one of the worst. So, I don't know. And then you enhance it with these, pills and other things going on. You never know what these guys are thinking.
And your brother had some issues with Terry Taylor in WCW. Were you always pretty cool with Terry Taylor?
Yeah, Terry was one of the other guys that were with Watts, so I had that rapport with Terry from, he kind of helped me through the business there when I was with Watts, having the matches. And so I had a rapport with Terry. I knew what kind of guy Terry was. My brother just, he had a different attitude about everybody, and he didn't like some of the things that Terry, my brother, that's the thing. He didn't like you, he'd tell you. It was no hiding it. It was no backstabbing. He just face to face tell you he didn't like you, and he treated you that way. And some people can't handle that. Some people can. It's the way he is.
And what do you think ultimately led to the end of WCW?
I believe, my thought, and it just got the guys, I think, were allowed to get out of hand with, first of all, the money just got crazy. There was guys were coming up with contracts, and if anybody else came in with got more money than they did, then their contract won. I mean, you can only dip in the well so many times, and I just think the guys were allowed a situation, and then, like anything else in the business with the boys, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and I think they just, it's just I think they started taking over the hen house, and you can't, I know Turner had a bunch of money, but once things started to get out of control, I mean, we were making money and the business was good and everything else, but it got to the point where it wasn't Eric's company, it was Ted's, and Ted lost controlling interest, and then once that happened, it just went down. That was I think ultimately, I think we could have still, if Ted would have kept control, because I don't know if anybody's ever, there's a story, this might be offline, but Ted Turner and his father were from Charlotte, North Carolina. They had a sign company. Well, Ted's father shot himself, and so the sign company was left to Ted. So Ted had his sign company, but he always wanted a public broadcasting TV company. Well, he bought one in Charlotte, and he went on the air one day and said, if everybody will send me $1, I can keep the show going. Well, Crockett seen that interview, so Crockett approached him about putting wrestling on his show to draw revenue and do advertising. Well, match made in heaven. Now we're doing TV shows on Ted Turner's TV. Well, then Ted takes it to the next level and goes to Atlanta and starts the Weather Channel and CNN. Well, the Crockett's got to a point where they got out of control with the money and everything and had to sell. Well, Ted bought it. He came back and bought it, and when he bought it, he brought us in and said, "You guys helped me out at the time. I'll always stand by wrestling no matter what. I sign your checks. You never got to worry about, there'll always be wrestling as long as I'm here and in control." So that was kind of the backdrop for going to WCW. But the problem is when you get a board and you get other people, they didn't understand the business, and then in 2000 he lost controlling interest, and then that was the beginning of the end.
And did you still have time left on your contract?
Yeah, my brother and I still had a year left on our contract, so we were finished in 2001. Yeah. I did like 3 years of Japan wrestling, and then my brother went up to Vince and had another run with that, and it would have been nice to get another 3 years. Mandalay Bay was supposed to be the one that was supposed to come in and buy it. I don't know the particulars or anything, but it just never came to fruition. So.
And you ended up spending some time in TNA.
Yeah, then my brother went down, and Terry was down there, and Eric. Well, it was before Eric was down there. Jeff Jarrett was down there, and then Sting went down there, and then they ended up asking me if I wanted to come down and do another tag with Dudley Boys. So I went down there and did a 6-month deal with that. And, that's when I knew it was getting close, because, man, I did a thing off the rope, and I missed that table off the top rope, and I missed that table by about an inch, and I landed goofy, and, instead of taking about a week or two to heal, it took about 6 weeks to heal, and I said, man, I got to do something else.
And Ken Shamrock was in TNA for a bit.
Yeah.
When you were there. Did you ever do anything with him?
No, I never got a chance to do anything with Ken. He was there for a short time, and never really had a chance to have a match with him or do anything. I know in the middle of WCW in '95, I know we were thinking about doing a movie came out about having shoot fights in a parking lot. I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, I can't remember it, but I talked to Eric about getting like a core group of guys and just and start something like that, and talk to him about doing that, but it never came to fruition, and I never really had any dealings with him, any matches or anything.
Are you surprised that it looks like TNA's pretty much in shambles now and is going out of
when I went there, it takes more than just having money to, and I know, her father has a lot of money, the owner of TNA. But you got to have a person that's committed and a good mind and a mind for this business, to make it work. And Vince he's been lucky, and he's been fortunate to have some of those people. Now it's been questionable sometimes, sometimes you think about it, but yeah, it takes, Dixie, you can't just run that thing and hope for the best. You got to know what you're doing,
Did you talk to her at all when you were there?
No, not much. It was Terry Taylor and Sting and a couple guys but I never had, I never talked to her much. I just did my thing. And
do you think that Billy Corgan really could have saved the company?
No, not ever.
And you spent a small amount of time in ECW. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, that's when Heyman still had it. And my brother and I had, I think we were up there. We had a few matches up there. It was, it was kind of the old school, going to these old arenas and small venues and wrestling. And, it's funny how all that stuff works out. Ends up being ECW is a decent name people recognize. And, I don't know how it, but it all worked out where my brother and I were actually wrestled every one of these territories, and we're champions at one time or another in those territories, and now it all comes together and means something. So,
do you think WWE is going to put you guys in the Hall of Fame ever? Is there too much heat?
Personally, I don't think. You never say never. I just, some things have been said and done, and I just, I don't know if that that story will ever be written.
And what was the issue with Scott and Hogan, the big restraining order thing? Was there anything to that? Or was that?
Yeah, it was. The thing got carried away on Twitter, and my brother, like I said, my brother just isn't going to ever back down from anybody, and he doesn't like Hogan to begin with. And he doesn't like Flair, and so my brother likes you, you're good. If he don't like you, he don't care, and he'll just do whatever he can. And my brother's been pretty successful with his money and everything, so money's never an issue for him. So when Hogan made some comments and stuff about the TNA and being down there and all that, my brother just let him have it. And then there was some things being said, and then my brother brought up some stuff that was pretty personal. It was true, but they didn't want it to come out. So and then, of course, I don't know, I wasn't there. They said he said something to Hogan's new wife or new girlfriend or something. I wasn't there. I didn't see any of it, but I know Hogan, I know the legality issues of it, yet he did. There was a couple lawyers hired, and there was some stuff taken out, but my brother ain't backing down from nobody or nothing, so.
And it turns out everything he said about TNA has been proven true.
everything, I think that's the funny, my brother, he says it, and it's kind of raw and, off whatever it is, but it's always true, or it always comes true. And so it's, it's not this fictitious stuff that he makes. Everything that he validates or says comes true or is true, and sometimes people just don't like hearing it. I think that's what people have, and he's like the only one that'll say something. Everybody's worried about, oh, don't do that. You'll lose this, or you won't be in the Hall of Fame. My brother don't care.
Yeah.
He'll just say what he wants to say.
And he operates a restaurant now too, or something like that.
Yeah, he owns the Shoney's franchise down in Georgia, and he's got one in Florida and a couple in Georgia. Do you want to start 2 or 3 in Georgia? So, good friends with the franchisee with the Shoney's Corporation there, so he's doing well.
And you're in real estate now?
I do residential and commercial real estate in Georgia, and I started that back in '95 with Boss Man, Kurt Hennig, and Rick Rue. We were buying houses and doing flips and renting them, and of course all those guys died, but that's where I really got my start. And then in 2000, I think it was 2002 or 3, I just had my license and doing it myself, and then I reactivated it again and went with a company, and I've just been doing it ever since.
And for your fans that want to follow you, do you have any social media or anything where they could?
I got a Twitter. It's I think it's Rick Steiner. It's just, I mean, you could spend hours and hours on that stuff, keeping up with it. But, I got a Facebook and I got a Twitter and LinkedIn and all that. And I'll check it once a day with some of the stuff, but don't really get into it much, like some of follow it and blog and everything. I just don't have time to do it, man. I got a business to run. The thing about real estate, if you don't work, you don't get paid. So I'm huffing it every day.
And is there any message you want to say to your fans that might watch this video before we close out here?
For the fans of the people out there, I respected the business, and I always wanted people to know that my brother and I treated everything as respectful as we could, and we always tried to operate in that gray area. So the psychology, you didn't know whether we hit him as hard as we could or as light as we could, and we were stiff. Yeah, that's just part of it. We got a name for being like that, but it was I think better for the business. But I just appreciate y'all sticking by us and watching, and it was a great ride. It was a great time. I get to wrestle with my brother. It's an amazing thing to do. Travel the roads for 18 years with me and Lex and Sting. Got to have some good friends in the business, and I enjoyed every minute. Who'd ever thought, being an amateur in college, and then all of a sudden professional comes along, and then wrestling comes along, and then all of a sudden NWA starts, and it's one of the hottest things going ever. And I just feel fortunate. I was in a great time where I actually got a chance to be where the territories and work with that, and learn back then the psychology, and then be involved with with all the different territories. That was great. And then just being in the business when money was great. And so it was just a fortune, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
All right, well, thanks a lot for talking to us, and good luck tonight in your match.
Thank you. I'm going to need it.